Okay, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to our latest explainer. Today, we're doing a complete biological breakdown of exactly why that neighborhood cat is driving you absolutely crazy. And more importantly, we're going to look at how science can permanently fix it. We so often look at community cats as just some sort of neighborhood drama or a homeowners association issue. But to really understand what's happening outside your window, we need to look at it through the lens of biology and social ecology.
So let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever been jolted awake at 2 a.m. by the midnight caterwauling of a neighborhood cat? Or maybe you've walked out your front door to grab the mail only to be hit by an absolute wall of eye-watering odor coming right off your front porch. Honestly, if you're nodding your head right now, you are definitely not alone. It's incredibly frustrating. But instead of just getting angry at what seems like a bad cat, we need to understand that this sleep-shattering drama, it isn't random malice. It's actually a highly specific hormone-driven behavior. Take a look at this list right here. We call this the classic neighborhood nuisance list. We've got the loud, late-night howling and caterwauling, intense territorial fighting, foul, pungent urine sprayed on porches and car tires, and, of course, the endless cycles of new kittens. These are literally the top complaints logged by property managers, HOAs, and annoyed neighbors everywhere. But as our sources clearly tell us, these aren't just isolated, random annoyances. They're actually deeply interconnected symptoms of a biological machine at work. And that brings us to this fascinating quote. An intact tom is a fairly efficient machine for converting GnRH/LH signaling into testosterone-mediated behavior. I know that sounds super technical, but in simpler terms, it means you aren't just looking at a stray animal out there. You are looking at a walking endocrine system on four legs. His brain is receiving these very specific chemical signals that trigger a massive production of testosterone, and that testosterone dictates almost everything he does. So, let's get into section 1. Driven by testosterone, the tomcat machine. To truly understand all that chaos in your neighborhood, we really need to look under the hood of this machine and see what's fueling the engine. And man, it boots up fast. 6. That is the number of months it takes for this biological machine to come fully online. The research actually shows that puberty, sperm production, and even the development of testosterone-dependent tissues, like penile spines, can begin in free-roaming toms when they are under 6 months of age. Let that sink in. That means a tiny kitten born in the late spring is already operating as a fully functional, fiercely territory-driven tomcat before the first snow even falls. It starts so early and it hits hard. And look at exactly what happens when those hormones kick in. Notice how we map out tomcat territory here. For an intact tom, his roaming boundaries are just massive, and they're incredibly volatile. They expand dramatically based entirely on the availability of females in estrus. He is literally compelled by his biology to actively patrol and fiercely defend these huge areas against any rivals. Now contrast that with a neutered male. Post-surgery, his roaming decreases by over 70%. The neutered cat stays localized, he's stable, and he hangs close to predictable food sources. He isn't out there picking fights 3 streets over. The crucial point to take away from this is that this high testosterone lifestyle is absolutely not a wellness retreat. Just look at this table. Because intact toms place such a huge high value on fighting for access to females and territory, the clinical consequences are rough. We're talking severe bite wounds and deep cutaneous abscesses. Plus, all this frequent brawling involves a constant exchange of blood and saliva, which drastically increases the risk for feline immunodeficiency virus or FIV. Add in the chronic stress and high-risk roaming across busy traffic, and the data clearly shows intact males have a significantly shorter lifespan compared to neutered males. It's just a dangerous, brutal existence. All right, moving right along to section 2, the chemistry of spraying. So, why exactly does that eye-watering tomcat spray smell so incredibly bad? Well, to understand it, we have to look at the complex biochemistry going on. It all comes down to 2 things, cateuxin and phelanine. Cateuxin is a major urinary protein and enzyme, and phelanine is an amino acid. The production of both of these is heavily driven by testosterone, which is what creates that highly pungent odor completely unique to intact male cats. So when a tomcat backs up to your wall with a quivering tail and leaves a mark, he isn't just forgetting his litter box manners, he's literally manufacturing and posting chemical paperwork for the rest of the neighborhood to read. And this sprayed urine is actually part of a highly complex olfactory network. The specific biochemistry of the spray makes it adhere incredibly strongly to vertical surfaces, which drastically prolongs how long the odor persists in the environment. This isn't just waste, right? It's a broadcast. It actively signals the tom's individual identity, his reproductive state, and it allows the local colony to discriminate familiar cats from threatening rival males. It is a highly sophisticated, if terribly smelly, communication system.
Which leads us perfectly to this brilliant insight. A tomcat is making endocrine decisions inside a social map drawn by resources. He isn't acting out of malice toward you or your property. His behavior is entirely dictated by his internal hormones interacting with the external supply of food and female cats. To change his behavior, you can't just chase him off the porch with a broom. You have to fundamentally change the endocrine decisions he's making.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 3, the post-neuter solution. Here's the thing. TNR isn't just some feel-good animal welfare concept. It is the only scientifically sound cure for this disruptive behavior. Let's compare the completely failed strategy of simply removing cats against the actual science of Trap-Neuter-Return, or TNR. When you try eradication, like just trapping and removing the cats from the area, you end up creating a resource vacuum. The food and shelter are still there, so neighboring unsterilized cats just flood into the newly empty territory. Their breeding kicks right into overdrive, the population explodes, and boom, you're back to square one. But with TNR, you sterilize the cat and return him to his home. He continues to hold his territory, but now he acts as a biological shield that blocks new cats from moving in. Because he's sterilized, the population naturally declines over time, and all those crazy nuisance behaviors, they just vanish.
Now, take a look at the actual timeline of this physiological shutdown. It's fascinating. Within just 1 hour of castration, circulating testosterone drops to a mere 3 to 12% of its previous values. Incredible, right? Within 1 week, the entire endocrine system drastically resets. And between 5 to 8 weeks, those testosterone-dependent tissues we mentioned fully regress. Now, it is important to manage expectations here. The hormones drop incredibly fast. But some learned behaviors and spatial memory might take a few weeks to completely fade away. But make no mistake, that biological off switch has absolutely been flipped. And the real-world result of this biological shutdown? It's incredible peace of mind for the whole neighborhood. Think about it, the midnight caterwauling and howling. It ceases entirely as those mating drives just evaporate. The territorial fighting? Aggressive behaviors decrease significantly, taking the risk of FIV transmission right down with it. And what about that pungent urine spraying? The coethexin and felinine production drops out, meaning the odor quickly fades back to just a standard feline scent, and the frequency of marking plummets. The nuisance engine is fundamentally shut down.
So how do you know if a cat has already been through this process? You look for the ear tip. This is the universal symbol of a managed cat, a surgically removed 1/4 inch from the tip of the left ear, done completely safely under anesthesia while they're being neutered. It is the non-negotiable, visual proof, visible from 50 feet away, that a cat is sterilized, vaccinated against rabies, and that its nuisance days are permanently over. Plus, it completely saves trappers and animal control officers from accidentally trapping the same cat twice.
So the absolutely crucial point for anyone who actually cares for these outdoor cats is perfectly summed up in this quote right from the source material. If you're feeding, you've got to be fixing. Look, providing food and shelter is compassionate, but feeding an unsterilized colony is literally just pouring high-octane fuel into that biological nuisance engine we've been talking about all day. Unsterilized colonies will quickly quadruple in size. If you want to stop the howling, the fighting, and the spraying, sterilization is absolutely essential.
Which really leaves us with one final question for today. Next time a neighborhood cat wakes you up at 2 in the morning, will you just get angry at a biological machine that's doing exactly what it's chemically programmed to do? Or will you advocate for the scientific cure? Because understanding the biology gives us the actual power to solve the problem. Trap-Neuter-Return isn't just about saving cats. It's about restoring peace and quiet to your neighborhood through real science. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this completely changes how you look at the cats outside your window. See you next time.